Continuing with Leviticus, chapter 1, we'll look at a burnt offering. Just look at this. There is a basic way of doing it. Of course, the details is inserted there too. Whether it's a burnt offering, a meat offering, a peace offering, or a sin offering. And 5 is a trespass offering. And 6, 7, and 8, 6 and 7 continues with giving more details about each of these offerings. So there is a basic way on handling an animal sacrifice. Depending on the type of offering it's meant to be, the person bringing the offering takes it to the door of the tabernacle. Okay, they don't go in. The priests are there. Aaron's sons are there. So they take it to the door of the tabernacle. So I guess you would know, if you bring an offering, you yourself would know, what is this for? A trespass offering, a sin offering. Oh, okay. So they would know what to bring. If not, the Aaron and his sons would teach you and said, you want to, so you can only do if you've sinned or caused somebody to fail or done something to. So it's a trespass offering is a mandatory atonement for unintentional sin requiring restitution. Okay, cleansing from defilement and make restitution, pay 20% is the fine. So if you've harmed somebody's animal, it unintentionally caused the death of an animal, caused harm to someone, so you do that. And that's mandatory. And then the sin offering, mandatory atonement for specific unintentional sin, confession of sin, forgiveness of sin, cleansing from defilement. And the other 3 are voluntary. The burnt offering is voluntary, a voluntary act of worship, atonement for unintentional sin in general, expression of devotion, commitment, and complete surrender to God. You feel God has prospered you. Your wife just gave birth to a son, or you had successful harvest. So the gratitude to God, you bring a burnt offering depending on your ways, depending on your means. Or a meat offering, again, to worship God, to honor him. It could be a grain offering. A peace offering is a voluntary act of worship, thanksgiving, and fellowship. The peace offering is the only offering in which not all of the animal is burnt. A burnt offering, definitely all of the animal is burnt. But a peace offering, not all of the animal is burnt. And because it's shared, some parts of it is given to the priest to be eaten. Some parts is you eat with your family and your community. So in this case, you bring a larger animal, not 2 pigeons or 2 turtle doves or a grain of flour, because you need to share. So in this case, you bring a bigger animal. The animals are to have no defect. It's not like, oh, this cow is dying, is old, let's give it as a burnt offering. No, you cannot do that. Okay, which I think in Malachi is recorded that's what they did. They did offerings. Yeah, I did. Right. But they threw offerings any old how. A dead cow, a dying sheep, lamb, an old goat. No. So what happens is you bring animal without blemish to the door of the tabernacle. The priest meets you there, and you put your hand upon the animal. This is substitutionary, signifying that he will die on your behalf for whatever reason. And then you would do all the killing and slaughtering and cutting, because the priests, they can't do it. There's a morning sacrifice, evening sacrifice, and people coming near the fires of the altar doesn't stop burning. That they're not supposed to. That fire keeps on going. The Aaron and his sons is to mend the fire on the altar inside the tabernacle compound, is to keep that fire going all the time. Must not. So that is why you have the priests there to minister these services inside the tabernacle. And later on, when they talk about the priests' vestments, and they themselves must offer sacrifices too, to cleanse themselves, so they're able to minister, go inside the tabernacle and minister these kind of offerings that the people bring. And then it talks about the vestments. So what do you do? So you come in dressed certain way, and then if you are to do the cleaning up, taking the ashes out and stuff to go outside, then you change your vestment. You cannot use the same holy vestments to do that kind of task. So you go back and forth changing vestments. And if for some reason blood is spattered on your garment, blood of the animal, you're defiled. So this is the first part of Leviticus, but we have to, in knowing this, then we understand the requirements of our God. While we don't talk about circumcision of a body part or vestments, we talk about the attitude. We talk about our heart being circumcised, so that we have a heart after God. So, okay. He puts his hand on the offering, the animal. Then he kills it, slit its throat and drain the blood. And Aaron's son would bring the bassoons to hold the blood, and would sprinkle it on the altar, and then pour the rest down the side of the altar. So you can see as there are more and more people. But even in the desert, this was already being done. See, this was all in Sinai, and going forward, that's what they do. They brought animals with them, and I suppose the animals multiply. And it was recorded that possibly there were millions of them. It was recorded how many of them left Egypt. 600,000 men. So it's huge. Well, of course, people poo-poo, it cannot be that many, blah, blah, blah. But definitely there's a lot, because it caused Pharaoh, the new Pharaoh, to be like, oh my goodness, these people are multiplying like rabbits. That's why they were oppressed. So there were a lot of people to have caused concern to Pharaoh. And there would be a lot of people, because they would be the people to go in and fight the Canaanites for the land and get it. So they would be spread around Canaan. So there would be a considerable number of them. Put that in mind, even though how can you so many of them be in the desert? And let's leave it for another time. So here, then he would flay the burnt offering. Well, I'm talking about the burnt offering, but if it's an animal sacrifice, it's basically the same procedure. It's just the concern for the reason for bringing that sacrifice is different. So the type of animal would be different. Burnt offering is only a male animal. Peace offering, it can be peace or sin offering. It can be male or female. So for obligatory offerings, there's more leeway to the animals, because you really don't want to put the hardship on the poor. Understand that it's all inclusive. So for sin and trespass offering is only a ram. So I suppose you don't always trespass in the sense cause harm to your neighbor. So that's not a very usual thing. And it's a harsh punishment, because you have caused harm to someone. albeit unintentionally. So definitely it's a ram. There's no other animal. A sin offering, very unintentional, little things, big things. So there's more leeway as to animal. Could be male or female. A young bullock for the high priest and the congregation. So for the high priest, for if Aaron needs to be cleansed to perform his duty, he must bring a bullock. Male goat for a ruler, female goat or lamb for common person, 2 turtle doves or 2 pigeons for the poor, 10th of a hin of fine flour for the very, very poor. And for burnt offering is a bullock, a ram, or male bird. So it's got to be male. Turtle doves or young pigeon for the poor. Holy, consume holy burnt, no defect. And in the case of grain offering, fine grain and things like that. So if it's an animal, this is what you do. You place your hand on the animal and drain this blood. Aaron and his sons would take the blood and then sprinkle on the altar and then throw the blood by the bottom of foot of the altar. And then you would cut it up. And then the sons of Aaron, the priest, shall put fire on the altar, lay wood in order. It's already burning. So they would lay then the parts on the altar. But if the whole thing is going to be offered to God, verse 9 specifically says, the innards and the legs shall be washed in water, and the priest shall burn all on the altar as a burnt offering, a burnt sacrifice, an offering made by fire of a sweet savor unto the Lord. You just read it and say, okay, you wash the innards and the foot. It's like, it does tell you why. It does tell you why later on. Why? The innards, especially the digestive system, consists of the digestive food material, including the poop. So you got to wash that. You cannot offer that to God. Also, the legs would have walked on poop or whatever. So you got to wash the legs too before the whole thing is offered on the altar and burnt to God. Make sense? It does. When I read it, you watch it. So many details too. But until you know the reason why, you wouldn't remember. Now you know the reason why. So even it does, regarding the bird, verse 16 of chapter 1, regarding the bird. So here, what do you do to the bird? You slit its throat. So the priest would twist its neck to kill the bird, trying to drain as much blood from it as possible. But then the crop of the bird is also it's plucked out, and the feathers is cast out beside the altar on this part and played by the place of the ashes. So you don't split the bird and then it's burned. So here again, just throw the whole bird on it. So you clean up its crop, where the bird eats and then poops, that part. So now you would have a greater appreciation of what is required. And then chapter 2, 3, 4 gives you more details about the reason for the other offerings, which I've talked about already. And chapter 5 also. So in the case of the peace offering, where part of it is eaten, so here again is done, it's cut up differently. I think the right shoulder and the right thigh goes to the priest, so that is cut out. And other parts is taken out to be eaten with the community and the person of family offering the sacrifice, and the rest is burned and offered to God. And there is something about the fat. The fat, when you cut up the animal, there's fat inside, especially the innards. The fat around the liver and around the kidneys is a different kind of fat. Well, we're not talking about dietary eating, that you eat it, or no, God needs a feast. But this fat is thick and waxy. And also sheep, the type of sheep they have is called fat-tailed sheep. What's fat-tailed sheep? This sheep has a huge, heavy tail full of fat. And again, this fat is very different. So this fat is separated out and burned. And when you smell burning fat, I have an Indian restaurant near me, and sometimes when they cook in the morning, you smell the garlic and the ginger and the spices. It's like, ooh. So that's what it is. This fat is different. It's waxy. Well, you don't eat it. It probably give you a coronary the next day, or get straight to your bum. But this fat is burned, and when it's burned, it gives this aroma. And it's this sweet smelling aroma, supposedly, that comes to God. Of course, God is spirit. It's like, there's no body parts. But for us to remember that, when we offer the best part of ourselves to the service of God, our prayers, our worship, our conduct in life, remember, it's like giving the fat to be burned, and that becomes a sweet aroma in the Lord's nose, and he accepts it. It's like, whew. We have to see that kind of parallel in order to be able to appreciate all the details here. And there's a lot of details, and it's hard to do it to do it justice, really. But since we don't do it, we just cover it mainly so that we appreciate the love and care when we offer our sacrifices of our conduct, our lives, and our worship to God. Let it be acceptable, and let it be a sweet aroma in his nose.